Hello, I'm SurferClock.
And I'm TAP-G.
And welcome to What's the Attraction?
Where our work is your vacation.
Let's do some history.
Oh, I see. And here I thought I wasn't allowed to do my Ben Stein impression.
I'm about to impart some education. It helps when our listeners aren't asleep. Well, there remains some debate as to where it all exactly began. The first written accounts of the lost city of Atlantis began with Plato's Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BC. Written as a historical allegory about the hubris of nations, and of course, Atlantis' plummet from grace. A scientifically advanced and extremely sophisticated island nation, Plato wrote of Atlantis that the gods became jealous of its superiority and cursed it to sink beneath the sea. It's generally viewed as a work of fiction, but as most of you know, not everyone agrees. Many actually believe Atlantis not only really existed, but are actively searching for whatever remains might be sitting on the ocean floor.
Because of the mysteriously alluring fascination folks have with lost civilizations and legends, the concept of Atlantis has endured in popular media, from the TV show Stargate Atlantis to a 2001 animated Disney movie to I'll Ride at SeaWorld Orlando, aka the topic of today's episode.
The first thrill ride at SeaWorld Orlando in 1998, and the first one of any of the Journey to Atlantis rides to open in the 3 American SeaWorld parks, Journey to Atlantis is hands down the most unique attraction at Shamu's domain. While other roller coasters are named after real or fictional creatures of the deep,
Kraken, Manta, Mako.
Journey to Atlantis sought to capitalize on the international recognition of the legendary Lost City. SeaWorld's mission has always been to educate through entertainment, and not only is it an extraordinarily difficult concept to pull off successfully, but there's only so much you can do when it comes to the sole subject of marine wildlife. You can do your Ben Stein impression now.
Let the record show that you are remarkably inconsistent about me doing it.
Hello and welcome to part 2 of SeaWorld's educational slide of fun. To ride the next part, answer the following question. What is the average width of a male smooth butterfly ray? You have selected 50 centimeters. That is correct. Please proceed. Hello and welcome to part 3 of SeaWorld's educational slide of fun. To ride the next part, answer the following question. What is the life expectancy of a leopard shark? You have selected 12 years. That is incorrect. The correct answer is 30 years. Please exit the slide to your left and have a SeaWorld-tastic day.
Now, the stories of Atlantis are more aligned with myth than scientific fact, so they're not really discussed or explored at the park.
They just save mythology for video games with a Kraken and Poseidon trying to steal the magic of SeaWorld.
But the name recognition in exotic locale probably was too tempting to pass up. That, and since Disney and Universal were raking in the big bucks with story-driven attractions, they probably tried to step up their game. So, let's take a closer look.
Put on our critical analysis, smart critic eye glasses,
and dig deep into this odd little plunge into the Isle of Atlantis.
Our attraction truly begins in the queue, where we see leftover props and tchotchkes from an old seafood restaurant?
What about those guys?
They say a man should always dress for the job he wants, so why am I dressed up like a pirate in this restaurant?
They came with the decor.
After the queue, we get sorted into the loading area. We see... Oh man, I forgot about that.
What?
The instructional video. First of all, let me say that there's nothing wrong with an instruction video reminding riders that they'll get wet, to store belongings in the lockers, etc., and so on. In fact, it's commendable. But there's a thing called consistent theming. Now, common sense says it would be something Atlantis or ocean or fish related, right? Or at the very least, not a mime.
Insert mime-related joke here because visual humor does not translate to a podcast.
I really don't get it. A mime. What exactly does a mime have to do with the lost city of Atlantis?
It's all because some hacker stole my identity. Now I'm in here every evening serving chowder and iced tea.
Apparently the guitarist was a mime at some point, I guess?
Alright, now we're ready to explore the submerged realm of Atlantis. Oh, I can't wait to see the sleek, stylish, futuristic submarines that'll escort us to the darkest fathoms of the ocean.
TAP-G? This is it.
Huh? That's not a submarine! That's a dinky dinghy! How are we supposed to reach an underwater city in a rowboat sans the oars?
Suspension of disbelief!
So we board our boats and go gently down the track. And right away, you're greeted by Hermes the seahorse, who guides you along via twinkling lights. Then, boom! Atlantis!
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 It's only a model.
Wait. How? We're in a dinghy following a seahorse with discount Christmas lights?
Suspension of disbelief!
At first, it does seem kind of nice. Lots of nice colors, beautiful coral and fish, some ethereal music, a vague sense of magic. It's actually kind of cool. Then, a mermaid pleasantly invites you to probe deeper. You coast through the inner city amidst the fountains squirting overhead, when all of a sudden things take a dark turn. The sea witch who invited you into Atlantis is now angry at you. Or Hermes, it's not made especially clear. She doesn't even say why, she just says, "Now you've done it!" What did we do? What did we do?
What an unusual view.
So, since we must pay for our nondescript crime, the witch sends us up some cursed incline, cackling all the way. Once at the top, you find yourself back out into the Florida sunlight.
Oh, hi, Mr. Sun. What's got you so upset? Mario? No, I haven't seen him. Sorry.
You coast around, then up a second incline, except we drop something very important.
What's that?
The plot. Now you're just kind of riding around the exterior of the ride, and Hermes and the witch are nowhere to be seen. And for some reason, they're playing the Beetlejuice music.
Really?
Yeah! Listen to the audio from Coaster Force.
Danny Elfman should sue, I think.
At the top of that incline, it's time for the big drop. Once you go down, you splash, you recover, and coast back to the ride. Then, back up another incline.
I'm guessing the money ran out for good theming and they didn't have the credit.
Should have gone to freecreditreport.com. I could have seen this coming at me like an atom bomb.
How are you guys on the ride track too?
Then you go back into Atlantis because...
Suspension of disbelief!
Then down a dark tunnel and whoop! Now it's a roller coaster. Ow, the sun, my eyes! Ow, the water, my lap! Ow, the lap bar, my stomach! Ow, the confusion, my sense of stability!
The cruise around to the unloading dock, and then through an MC Escher set of staircases just to get out. There, it's done.
Wow. Man, why are we critics again?
So you don't end up selling fish to tourists in t-shirts.
Tourists in t-shirts is 2/3 of the population of Florida, you condescending moron!
It's over, man. Let's just discuss. And what a mess this attraction is.
To say the least.
I do have to ask a serious question, though, and I wanted to propose this question right away. Was this someone's first attraction? As it turns out, it is. Actually, it's the Mac Company, or Mac, or something along those lines. It was actually their first water coaster. And what a bang-up job they did.
The biggest and most important thing here is the story and the theming. They really dropped the ball on this.
Now, there is a general theme to the attraction, but the story itself is just completely muddled. The queue does nothing to tell you the story. The safety video sure as heck doesn't. Mime. Still a mime. Why? I can't understand. What's with the mime? I know it's a thing at SeaWorld. I know they had several of them in their shows some years back, but now that we don't have mimes, it's just a little weird.
And then you have, I don't know, the guy with Hermes. I mean, was it just me, or did that scream Dreamfinder Figment knockoff?
Ron Schneider should sue, I think.
And then, welcome to Atlantis. Now you've done it, you pretty little pony. And then she chases you, and then there's a Gorgon, and what happens?
And then there's Beetlejuice music. That, again, it's so odd. It's so unfitting. What happened with this attraction? That's honestly, that's the only thing I keep thinking as I write it. It's just, what happened? And then, we've written this a few times now.
Yeah.
The third time around, we heard something that we had never heard before. There were safety instructions at the top of each lift.
Yeah,
Please remain seated and keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside.
It's really weird and jarring when you're trying to be submerged in this themed ride where you're supposed to be in this lost ancient city of Atlantis, and then it takes a moment to tell you to make sure that your hands and arms are inside the coaster. What?
I don't know if this is just like a button that like a team member pushes or something. I mean, they don't do a great job of keeping you immersed anyway, just because they keep putting you back out into the sunlight, back into Atlantis, back out, back in, back out. It's, again, I keep saying mess and what happened, but that's the only thing I can keep thinking. And then as you go through, there is at least one redeeming thing about this attraction. And I think each of us kind of have a point to where this isn't like a complete failure of an attraction. Now, I always like to make sure that if I'm going to, rate something kind of low, that I don't go down too far if there's something really super neat about the attraction. And as I said, we've both ridden this ride 3 times now, at least, for the purposes of the review.
Yeah.
The one thing that keeps me coming onto this ride, and the one thing that I keep missing and I keep forgetting to look for, there's this part at the end where you kind of go up this incline, and it's like, that's actually the water coaster part of it. So it's like, that's really cool. And as far as rides like this, say Splash Mountain or Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls, this is something I've not seen any other water ride attempt. Now, there are inclines that you go up, but you actually go quickly up and right on around the corner, and then the ride just ends. But honestly, to me, this little incline, that one little curvy bit, that's the coolest thing on this ride. So that's what kind of keeps me coming back to it. I don't know if there's anything in particular that you really enjoy about it.
Well, I'm very hung up on the very inconsistent story. The theming, in a lot of places does it really nicely. I mean, just from the outside, it looks gorgeous.
It does look great.
But then when you go into the second part where you're outdoors for the first time and the track just looks awful, the words that come to my mind is inner city pool. It just looks grimy and grungy and not themed to Atlantis at all. And then there's signs posted everywhere and exit signs. And then even the coral section, like that second part of the ride, to me it looks like the Shamu video game. What'd you call it?
Oh, right. The leftover bits of what E.T. Adventure threw up.
Yeah, it's nice and colorful, but it's almost a little too hokey. Because that you have the big drop rides and because you have the slow parts and then you have a few fast parts, it's very unfocused and very poorly paced. And the only way to describe this, as far as I'm concerned, is that this was SeaWorld's one attempt to be Universal and Disney. There was a story, there was a beginning, middle, and end, there were characters, and they wanted to really do it with a great and epic grand story, and they really did not get there at all. Now, I could call this ride many things, but I cannot in good conscience call this pretentious.
Really? You don't think this is pretentious at all?
It's ambitious. Mm-hmm. It clearly had ambition, and it wanted to do it, but it didn't have enough to go. It didn't try hard enough to really push itself beyond that. So because it didn't try too hard by its own merit, it doesn't feel pretentious. Now, that's kind of a double-edged sword. It either tries too hard and fails, or doesn't try hard enough and still fails. But I will say this, like I said, it's not pretentious. It looks great from the outside, and the gift shop I think is probably the best experience overall, because they have aquariums underneath the floor and in the ceiling up above you. And I think that's more of what SeaWorld should be more focused on, the animal and the marine experience, rather than trying to do what Disney and Universal do.
Yeah, I mean, the gift shop, I still like the curvy part. Honestly, that's what keeps me from rating it too harshly. I mean, I could go, Stitch's Great Escape and and just, rate it really critically. But that little lift part, that I would actually, coming to SeaWorld on a regular basis, I would actually want to ride Journey to Atlantis maybe once per time, just to kind of see that effect, because that's the part that resonates with me the most. So that's actually where I'm going to go ahead and rate it a 2 out of 5. Now, it's not the best attraction, but I just like that little part. To me, that little part makes it unique for me.
Honestly, I'm not that fond of it. I have to give it a 1.5 out of 5.
Okay, so that's going to be a 1.5 out of 5 from TAP-G and a 2 out of 5 from SurferClock.
Journey to Atlantis has a height requirement of 42 inches or 106 centimeters. Those in wheelchairs and scooters will need to transfer into the boats. The roller coaster and drop parts aren't too wild or intense, but luckily you can see the one big drop before you get in line, so you can make your assumptions there. Ask a team member for any other questions you may have.
As far as a recommendation goes, it's not something we can totally recommend. As an idea, it has a lot of merit, but somewhere along the line, you can tell it so desperately wanted to be a Disney ride, with lots of theming and a story and characters, but it also wanted to be a little bit of a roller coaster and a flume ride. It was kind of too ambitious for SeaWorld and altogether unfocused, borrowing elements from too many sources and not really concentrating on what the end result should be.
But what's most tragic of all is the fact that this ride is almost continually in a state of disrepair. Some days some audio works, sometimes some effects don't work. It's kind of fascinating that it rarely has all of its parts functioning at once. It's fascinating, but mostly sad. Tragic even. It really deserves better than what it's received. All in all, I see it's good for at least one ride just to say you've done it all at SeaWorld. Well, that and because Hermes is kind of cute.
Well, that does it for today's episode. Until next time, I'm SurferClock.
And I will name him George, and I will squeeze him and pet him and love him and hug him.
And we're What's the Attraction?
Where our work is your vacation.
Atlantis is waiting.